So the first part of the quiz, it was purely memorization. Okay, you had to memorize these words, and we practiced plenty that I probably think a lot of you had to memorize because we were doing it every single day for about a week. So when you're talking about the how starter words, you have words that end in ly, words that start with the word with, words that start with the word without, words that start with the word like, and words that start with the word as. Now, as you have to be careful about because as can be for when and how. You have to ask yourself, is this phrase tell me how I did something or is it telling me when I did something? Part 2, there were 5 when expanders that I said you had to have memorized. Okay? They were while, before, during, after, and what was the last one? When. All right? Now, what you had to do here is you had to give me 5 additional when expanders. And I didn't want the really obvious ones like tomorrow, yesterday, okay? Rather things like soon, never, always, sometimes. Some of you put the words like the next day. Okay, so you would put the next day, but then you would write the next morning. You know what? That's pretty much the same thing. You're talking about next is telling you when. So I counted that as 1. All right, are there any questions on that? All right, part 4, you had to diagram the sentences. Now you have to remember, when you're diagramming a predicate, it's the 4 triangles, and it goes under the predicate. Subject, okay, this is predicate, this is subject, and then as you know, all the expanders go in a triangle. So the first sentence says, after he broke his leg, William hobbled clumsily from classroom to classroom throughout the day. So the first thing I'm going to look for is I'm going to say, okay, do I see any of those starter words? So, and I'm going to say to myself, okay, is that a starter word that's telling me how, or is it telling me when? So right away, I notice an ly word, but you have to be careful because, like we had said, there are ly words that are imposters. They end in ly, but they're not telling us how something is being done. So like the word holy, like the Holy Church, it's not telling me how something is being done. It's a word that just happens to end in an ly. So clumsily, it definitely tells me how something is being done. So you have to make sure you only triangle each individual word. We're not triangling, is that triangling? Like 2 expanders together. Each expander is entitled to its own triangle. He doesn't want to share a house with anybody. This is his house. This is where he's living. All right? So this is telling me how. And then I see the word after. Oh, okay, after. So you have to say to yourself, well, what is the whole phrase? Like, where does the expander end? Because some of you were not including the entire expander. You're kicking some of the expander family out. So like some of you were doing this, but that's not the whole expander. These poor little people over here are crying. So this right here is telling me after he broke his leg is telling me when. All right? So now I have to look for anything else that tells me when or how. So throughout the day, a majority of you missed that. Okay? This is telling me when. You have to be careful. I'm not going to make you memorize every single when word. It's not necessary because common sense, just say to yourself, what words are telling me when? All right, so I'm going to say to myself, what did somebody do clumsily? The predicate is hobbled. And who hobbled? William. Number 17. While the house was on fire, the flames marched destructively like dragons with leaping tongues through the dry timber. Automatically, I notice this like. So I have to ask myself, is that a phrase that's telling me how I did something, like dragons with leaping tongues? Yeah, it is. This is an expander. It's telling me how. But the expander ends after the word tongue. It doesn't go on through the dry timber. Through the dry timber is telling me actually where, which we didn't even cover yet. So then I see automatically, here's another ly, destructively, telling me how. Then I see while, so while the house was on fire. This is telling me When. So I'm going to say to myself, what happened destructively? What did they do destructively? The predicate is marched. And who or what marched? Flames. Any questions on that? All right. Jen always, yes. No. Underline for subject. I didn't mark you wrong, but we're going to go with the whole underlining for subject. Jen always speaks openly and honestly without hesitation. Automatically. I-C-L-Y. Yes, that's telling me how. And honestly, it's telling me how. These two little guys deserve their own little how house. Do not put them together. Some of you were triangling, making one big triangle like this. But is and an expander? No. Okay? So you would not want this. We got to get rid of this little triangle here. All right? Stop folding paper, whatever you're doing up there. It's a little distracted. All right. Now I see the word without. Right there, without. It's telling me how she did something or who did something. Always. A lot of you missed always. Always is telling me what?
When?
Stand up and always.
What?
Stand up. You're saying it's telling me how.
Oh, when?
It's telling you when. All right, so what did Jen always do? Speak. That's the predicate. Who or what speaking? Jen. Question. No.
I do.
Okay.
How would always be a when?
How is it always a when? Someone explain
wouldn't
it.
be a how, but
Paul, go ahead.
it's telling-
All right, number 19. Oh, I'll help. All right, as soon as the dog escaped from the backyard, the owner wildly ran after him like a raging bull because she was afraid he was going to get hit by a car. Okay, automatically I noticed one of these like phrases, like a raging bull. Okay, so right here, that's telling me how. All right, I notice as. Okay, so as soon as the dog escaped from the backyard, that's a whole phrase. But is it telling me how? Because I know as tells you how, but I also know as tells you when. So this is telling me when something happens. All right, and then I notice another ly word. That's telling me how. So what did they do wildly? Ran. So ran is a predicate, and who ran? Owner. You want to move it up for me, please? Okay. We are on, what are we on, 20?
21.
No, we didn't do 20. No, we didn't. Jen stormed into the house like an exploding volcano. Oh, this I kind of messed up on, so we got to erase this. Okay. Jennifer stormed into the house like an exploding volcano after she realized a tree fell on her car. Okay. I know, like an exploding volcano, that's one of those that's telling me how, because it starts with that like. After she realized a tree fell on her, that's telling me when. So what did Jen do like an exploding volcano? Stormed. That's the predicate. Who's doing it? Jen. Subject. Okay, 2 comma rules. Not hard. Comma after ly words and comma after expander of 4 or more. Now, here is the issue I ran into. Here is the issue I ran into. A lot of you, for this one, you put that expander rule, right? But then all of a sudden, you go down to part 5, and you go to revise it. But you didn't follow the comma rule. You want to scroll down for me? Okay, so in part 5, you had to revise. But here's the deal. Remember I said to you, you have to make sure the sentence makes sense. You know, you could revise something and you read it and you're like, all right, this doesn't even sound right. So when I look at this, the couple left as soon as the lights came on so they could beat the crowd. All right. So the best way to revise this, well, one way is as soon as the lights came on, as soon as the lights came on. So as soon as the lights came on. Now, what is that telling me? Everybody? When. And how many words are in that little expander?
5.
So what do I need? 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 6. Comma. Shh. Zip it. I need a comma. Right here, yeah, as. As soon as the lights came on, comma, the couple left so they could beat the crowd. That's one way of revising it. The other way you could revise it, all right, but we didn't learn this type of expander, but you could. I didn't mark you wrong. So they could beat the crowd, comma, the couple left as soon as the lights came on. What is that phrase telling you? It's not telling you how. It's not telling you when. But what is it telling you? What do you think? Quincy?
Why? What?
No? Bria?
Why?
It's telling you why. That's another expander that we're going to get into next week. We don't need to even get into it now. All right. The ice dancers performed without a single mistake during the competition. This is the one where people wrote, and I marked you wrong because it was very awkward. So there's a couple ways you could do it. We have 2 without a single mistake. That's one expander, and during the competition is an expander. So if I wrote during the competition, oh, really? Oh, this is what a lot of you guys were doing. You were putting a comma, and I'm like, come on, are you kidding me? Because you got the rule right, but then you're not following the rule. So you're not applying it. You have it memorized, but you're not applying it. So no, this does not get a comma because there's 1, 2, 3. You don't need a comma. So during the competition, tell me if this sounds right. Without a single mistake, the dancers performed. No, it doesn't sound right. It's very awkward. So the best way to write this one is during the competition, the ice skaters, so this would go first. During the competition, I'm going to try to write in script. During the competition, the ice dancers performed without a single mistake. Okay, that would be the best way. And it does not get a comma. Okay? So I hope you understand what you did wrong. And so when you go to take this test again, because you are going to next week or the week after, we're going to learn the 2 other expanders. But when I give you an assessment, you're going to have to still keep doing the how and the when expanders.